In this section, we are going to begin our discussion of server-side rendering. The first block we built was a client-side rendered block. There's a vast difference between both types of rendering methods. Let's get into the differences and why you would choose one over the other. For starters, how does WordPress render a block on the front end? With client-side rendering, the process begins with the Gutenberg editor. WordPress initiates the saving process the moment a user publishes a post. It'll loop through every block on the editor. On each iteration, it'll search for a save function. If this function exists, WordPress will invoke the function. The content produced by the save function will be saved in the database. Everything happens in the browser with JavaScript. On the front end, if the page is requested, WordPress will search for the page from within the database. The content saved in the database will be sent to the browser. WordPress will not process the content further since it's ready out of the box. You can think of client-side rendering as a fast food restaurant. By the time you've arrived at the restaurant, your food is ready. You're in and out within minutes. The process is different with server-side rendering. If the user clicks Publish, WordPress will loop through the blocks on the page. If it finds a block without a save function, an HTML comment is saved in the database. Attributes are added to the comment if a block needs them. Other than that, the editor doesn't perform additional work. Next, before a page is delivered on the front end, WordPress will perform additional actions. It'll notice that our block is lacking content. If it were to render the content as is, visitors would see nothing. After all, the block has been saved as an HTML comment. WordPress will search for a PHP function to handle rendering the content. This PHP function can be defined by us. Inside this function, we must return content that will be presented to the visitor on the browser. This content will replace the HTML comment stored in the content. WordPress will deliver the content to the browser. You can think of server-side rendering as a regular restaurant. Our food won't be ready from the beginning. The chef must take time to prepare our food after ordering. The question becomes, why would we choose client-side rendering or server-side rendering? Client-side rendering can be a great choice for simple content that does not rely on external data. The paragraph block is a great example of a block that can be created on the client. It's a block that has a simple presentation. In terms of performance, client-side rendering is considered superior. The page may take a few seconds to save. However, on the front end, WordPress can render the page faster. The block does not need additional help. It's ready to go from the beginning. What about server-side rendering? Server-side rendering is great for blocks that produce dynamic content. The site title block is a great example. Users with administrative permissions have the power to change the title of a site. If the site title changes, the front end should reflect that change. Therefore, the site title block can never be rendered by the client. It must always check the database for the latest value of the site title. Server-side rendering is considered slower than client-side rendering. In most cases, you should consider creating a block with client-side rendering. If the block's content can be changed, you should switch over to server-side rendering. Otherwise, clients must manually save the page if a block's content is outdated. That may be okay for a single page, but what if we had hundreds of pages? It would become a tedious task. Through experience, you'll be able to decide which type of rendering to choose. For the rest of this section, we are going to create blocks with server-side rendering. Let's get started.